Hi, everybody. It's Lacey Keeker. I'm joined by Matt Hanton. Welcome back to the business of boutique fitness. We are in part 3.
Part 3.
I mean, can you imagine?
Time
Turns
flies.
out we could talk about uncomfortable conversations a lot.
Absolutely. We could.
This
Well,
is
we've
not
had
a
enough of
problem.
them.
Oh, jeez. If you've been in boutique fitness at all, you know you're going to have uncomfortable conversations. Now, part 1, we talked all about the uncomfortable business conversations we're going to have. Those are going to be things like, how do you raise your prices? How do you explain that to your clients? How do you negotiate with your landlord to raise your rent? Part 2, we talked about the difficult team conversations, like talking about also the small conversations that you need to be putting into place now so that the big conversations are not as difficult. But then getting to the elephant in the room one, how do you tell someone you have to change their compensation and it's not necessarily going up? Very important on this. Now we're sitting in part 3. We're going to talk all about uncomfortable conversations, but on the client-facing side.
Which I feel like we often don't think about that
Don't
much,
think about it at all.
right?
It's like we assume they're all perfect. There is a thing about the rule that we've all been told that the client is always right. And the fact of the matter is that's not true.
How you feel about the compliment sandwich is how I feel about the phrase, the client is always right. It rubs me the wrong way.
It's very cultural too.
Yeah, it's also just factually incorrect.
No.
Like it's just straight up an incorrect statement.
No, it's interesting. So when I talk to clients of mine and friends who live in other countries, they're like, who invented that saying? That is a horrible saying. And so it's very polarizing outside of North America, where we really, really do lean into this. And so there starts off with, I think, a willingness to say, facts are the client is not always right.
Did I just reveal my Australianness? Yeah, I just really showed that I was Australian by not subscribing to that. And look, I understand the premise. I think the place that saying comes from is that you want to work with the client to make them happy and to accommodate what a client needs, right? And I can subscribe to those theories, but I just think saying the client is always right.
That's taking it too far. Yeah. Like we are way, 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 way out here at this point. This is instead, I think the attitude that we want to say is that our job is to deliver the most excellent experience to every client.
That's it.
That's what we can agree on this one. All right, so let's talk about the first. I'm going to actually add one to this, okay? Because I think this is really important. So this is not on our list. Matt does not know what's coming. I'm so sorry on this one.
Just bring up past trauma. Go for
All right,
it.
let's go ahead. We're going to see if PTSD starts coming up for either one of us. Let's talk about what happens when a client leaves a 1-star review. Maybe not even a 1-star review. Maybe it's a client you've bent over backwards on and you get a 4-star review. Maybe you have had 152 5-star reviews and it's your first one. By the way, if that's you, since that just happened with a client of ours, please don't worry. It's actually more believable that you are at 4.99 stars than if you're at 5 stars. I'm totally fine if you're not at 5 stars. I'm completely comfortable with that. But the fact is, when you get a review that is someone that you oftentimes bent over backwards on, that you've oftentimes tried to give them a great experience, that you've oftentimes spent the time and the energy to help them with, it can be really painful to get, 3 stars. Or to get a comment about something that they never brought up to you. And instead, the first place to go wasn't to you, but it was to Google. So I've got to ask, when you get those reviews that seem like they come out of left field, and especially when you're not used to them, how do you normally handle that?
Here's my first piece of advice. Take a deep breath. Okay, start there. Calm down, breathe, think it through, type whatever it is that you might want to say, and then either delete it or sit on it for at least a minute, right? If you are replying from that emotional place, it's not going to end well, right? So you have to make sure that you've gotten out what you want to say, but then once you've calmed down and you're not in that heightened state anymore, you're still comfortable with the message back that you want to send.
100%. In my mind, 2 types of reviews we normally see. There are reviews where someone gives a review and they really don't say anything with it. So it's oftentimes just a number of stars on this. Important to note that even those reviews warrant a response. Second is a review where someone tells everything about their experience. And those reviews typically come from a couple of people. They come from people who were in your studio and you had to ask leave because it was a bad experience on their part. They come from people who were clients that you had to have a difficult conversation with that didn't go as well. or they are the friends and family members of disgruntled team members that you had to let go. Normally falls into one of those three categories. And I find that it's actually easier to deal with the people that write absolutely everything than it is to deal with the people who write absolutely nothing on this one. So, first things first, you got to respond to all of them. I mean, every review you get, good, bad, or otherwise, you need to write a response to on this one, and not a generic, not a cookie cutter response, a real, wow, this is wonderful. So if you get someone who's never been into your studio before that leaves 1 star and no comment, it's perfectly appropriate to write and say, I've checked our records and I don't show that you've ever been into our studio. I really would appreciate you, reviewing and sending us your actual name if you've been into our studio and really, have this experience or really have left this review. That's going to tell people a lot of things. I mean, even just going there, if someone has been into your studio, they left that review, it's okay to say, I'm really disappointed to hear this. We had a very different view of the experience than you did.
Absolutely. There is no harm in that whatsoever. And you will sometimes just get those random reviews where this person is completely unrelated to your business and completely just, it's a curveball. And I think that there must just be a cohort of people out there in our world who just like leaving bad reviews randomly for places they've never been to.
Clearly, like that's a thing. By the way, this is me. I knocked over our timer trying to shift around. I don't do well sitting all day. And I'm afraid when we're doing this, I've been sitting. Next podcast, we're going to be up and I'm going to be like, yes, we're moving all around. Thank you so much, Sydney, on this one. All right. The big ones are when somebody writes you a lot. And I think there's a couple of things to look for. First, if there's anything that violates Google's terms of service, really important that you go in and ask them just to take the review down. Okay. I think that that's simple and basic. I never will forget, we had a client who had a very difficult woman who came in. She had been a long-time client. She had had a really difficult day at work, and she had an literally apocalyptic fit in the studio, and they had to ask her to leave. They wound up having to call the police, in fact. And she left a horrific review on this. And, the first thing that I think we had to say and do on that one was that we said, hey, look, she called y'all Nazis. That violates a bunch of things. So I was like, we're going to write a nice review up, but right now you are going to go and have this, on Google. That review was down in 45 minutes. Yeah. I mean, it's simple sometimes just to go there on where this is.
Yep. There are lines in the sand.
Yeah. It's just
there
really
are boundaries
easy.
That we just
put it up there on this one. Second thing is to be factual. Okay. So the response that we made to that review is very straightforward. We said, we have loved having you as a client. I'll be frank, we have had, you've been a client for, a year and a half and have been in twice a week. We've never had a negative experience with you. It was very unfortunate what happened in class. We were very concerned for the safety of those in the class with you, as were your fellow classmates. When it was requested that we call the police, and yes, I would be totally willing to say this, when it was requested that we call the police because you refused to leave, that is something we didn't take lightly. We really do wish you the best. While we understand that both parties are wishing that we don't want you to come back into the studio, we really sincerely wish you the best. When I read that afterwards, it's respectful, it's factual, it's thoughtful. I'm going to look at whatever they just said and think that is the words of a crazy person. I think you got to be very, very, very clear on this. Any other suggestions on the negative reviews? Because we talk about Google reviews, which are really easy. Sometimes it's really hard to get the reviews that come through the grapevine, that come through like, I heard so-and-so said that your class just wasn't as good anymore.
Yeah. I mean, I think all those points that you just made are the way to approach all of this feedback, right? You just have to be factual, you have to be respectful, and you have to do all of those things. It really does depend on the medium. And the reason why I find it more difficult with the reviews is that it feels very one way.
It is one way.
It's very much, it's lacking that conversation quality, which I struggle with, because as difficult as these conversations can be, I would rather have a conversation.
100%.
I would rather pick up the phone or get in front of someone and talk it out as opposed to go back and forth. So I think that, yeah, when you get those online reviews, you've just got to do exactly what you said.
I love it. I love it. I love it. All right, let's talk next. Let's talk about setting boundaries with clients next. I think really important thing, because hopefully if we set boundaries with clients, we don't have to do what's going to come next, which is letting go of a client. So let's talk about the types of boundaries that we oftentimes need to set with clients. What are the big things you've experienced?
I mean, I think the vast majority of the issues that we face come down to behavior, right? And behavior is a very broad, very all-encompassing term, but typically that's where the majority of our issues with clients and the reason why we're 86ing them is going to come from behavior, right? So having a code of conduct that they've agreed to, right? Or terms and conditions, which really outlines the expectations. I think having your mission, vision, values as well, public, can be a really good stepping stone in this, because values should be actionable. And if it's not just for our staff, right? We hold them to that, but we also hold our clients to that. So I think being really clear about it, but similar to the way you have difficult conversations with your team members, before it gets to that point where it's really, it's black and white and it's a binary decision here, we should be having lots of level setting and educational conversations with our clients to try to stop it from getting to that point.
I think you've hit the nail on the head. When it comes to behaviors, it can be broad. Yeah. It can be everything from, hey, we really encourage you not to talk during class or use your phone or film yourself. Yeah. Okay, that's a big one that we're dealing with these days. That's becoming increasingly important, that if you ever want to see two people have a crazy cat fight in class, it is because oftentimes the use of a phone and people being filmed.
Mm-hmm. Filming in the locker rooms too.
See,
how has that become more of a thing? That I've seen a lot of that cropping up, and it blows my mind.
It's I'm going to say that that's the type of thing that truly violates laws in most states. Literally, I don't mean to be like, oh my gosh, just like you're taking it too far. No, I just don't want to go to jail.
Yeah.
I have a really simple viewpoint on this.
Right.
So I think getting in, recognizing that oftentimes how you are treating other clients and team members. So a willingness to be respectful on this. This is something where I think you have to recognize that no one's above the code of conduct of your studio. We have lots of clients that have significant celebrity client bases. And it's interesting because they're probably the ones that are the firmest with their codes of conduct, because in their mind, you can't not be. Yeah. Did you remember when Taylor Swift went to the private members club in New York and somebody filmed her?
Yes.
And they were like, goodbye.
Correct.
We'll see you later.
Yep.
Those are the types of things you don't want to have in your studio happen.
Yep,
it's
absolutely.
not what you want. It's not what you want to be known for on this. Now, a lot of this comes down to understanding code of conduct. Mm-hmm. Even more comes down for your team understanding how to enforce it.
Yes. And you know what? I would take the approach of instilling in my team members that every client that comes through the door is a celebrity. Every client that comes through is Taylor Swift. So if you're taking a picture of a client without their consent, it doesn't matter if it's, Jane, whoever from down the road, or if it's Taylor Swift. We're not doing it.
Perfect.
Right? So let's start there. But also I think what's super important from this, and the primary point with getting teams involved in addressing this, is consistency.
Yeah.
Okay. So if Matt is doing something, Matt doesn't get away with it if then Lacey's doing something and Lacey gets pulled up on it.
Exactly. Consistency and immediacy.
Yes.
If your team is there, it is like, boom, I've caught it right now. It's done. It's a behavior that immediately was saying, hey, we do not reinforce this behavior.
Correct.
We are immediately going to go ahead and put a stop to this for anyone on this one. This means that your team's going to have uncomfortable conversations. Mm-hmm. We're talking about uncomfortable conversations and where this is. What's the type of training you've gone through with your team? Because I know this has involved massive amounts of practicing on our teams over the years. And it still does, by the way.
Yeah.
We've had to have a couple of conversations in the last few weeks that have been really difficult at Studio Grow. Yep. And we've literally gone and role played the whole
There
conversation
it
because
is.
I'm like, there is no other choice.
Yep. I'm sure that when you asked that question, a few listeners started to get their palms a little bit sweaty because they were worried we were going to say the words role play, right? But it genuinely is. Once you get
Yeah.
over that first 5 or 10 seconds where it's awkward, it is such a good way to learn. Okay.
Because it's its most awkward then.
Honestly. And
Like it's
maybe,
never going to be harder than what you just experienced.
right. And maybe it's just because I live in Los Angeles, so I am surrounded by
Actors,
actors and
God bless you.
acting is, in the water there. But it's honestly the best way to learn, and practice makes perfect, right? And I would rather them work out the kinks and work out their discomfort around having those conversations with me in a safe space rather than needing to do it for the first time with a client.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think this is where having firm values that your team knows,
Yep.
having a code of conduct that backs
they
up
can
how you're
reference.
going to handle those values.
Yes.
That is like the two things that are going to answer 99% of this. What do you do when it's a behavior that somebody's like, hey, this isn't explicit in my code of conduct. It isn't explicit, yet my gut is this is not the right thing.
Yeah. So in a situation like that, I would want them coming to me first.
Absolutely,
Right?
yeah.
So we talk a lot about empowering our teams. However, there are certain situations where ultimate decision-making authority should lay with the business owner or studio manager, right? So let's clear that one up first and let's figure out how to approach that together. I think what's really important here is that we're grounding our messaging with our clients in policy, rules, just generally morals, values, whatever it is. But the way that we're delivering it is really putting the meat on the bones of the conversation.
I love that.
Because-
I absolutely love that.
Because if I come up to you and I just say filming's not allowed,
Oh, it's horrible.
ooh, that was
That's going to be a 1-star review.
yeah, that was abrasive. Even I didn't feel nice saying that, right? But if I can let you know in a really respectful, really communicative way that's
Yeah.
educational, then I can still advise you of our policy and train you on that, but you're not going to walk away from it feeling attacked or anything.
Yeah. I think really, really, really critical. This is where soft skills matter. Soft skills are not like, for some people, I'm not going to lie, some people naturally have soft skills. I find a lot of it is like what area of the country you were raised in. People from the Midwest and the Deep South in the United States, for example, tend to have excellent soft skills because they have been taught that manners and gentleness and all this. Whereas meanwhile, I love it. Like I went to school in Boston and, going up there and making those plans on this one, so funny on this. Like, my God, my girlfriend grew up there and she's like, we were taught to be abrasive. She's like, that was actually like part of our social cues. So recognize that with your team, as well as with yourself, you might be dealing with some social cueing that has been embedded with you since you were a child that you may need to reframe just a little bit, and that practice for you and for them may be incredibly important.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are some people who will just naturally gravitate more into a comfort zone with these sorts of conversations, and then other people that won't.
Yeah.
Right? And so everyone's going to need a little bit of different support, and, we can work through that.
Now let's talk about the final piece of this. Hopefully, if we have the right conversations with our clients, we don't have to do this, but there's going to be a point in time where almost every studio owner is going to have to let a client go. Do you remember the first time this happened?
Oh gosh, like it was yesterday, unfortunately. I'm still in therapy. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. What I really recall from that interaction is how proud I was of myself afterwards for having it and making it happen, right? Yes, I had anxiety in the lead up. Yes, I practiced 100,000 times before I had the conversation, but that sense of pride that I had, that I'd really protected my business, protected my staff, done the right thing, handled it in a professional, respectful way. I was very chuffed with myself.
Yeah, I think I had this conversation with someone recently. They were asking me, they were like, do you remember the first time? And I was like, so I was the same thing. I remember like it was yesterday. It was our biggest client. And when I say our biggest client, like they made up probably close to 10% of our revenue. It was it was an heiress of an extraordinarily wealthy family. And she paid for multiple of her friends all to have full-scale private training multiple times a week. So I knew that I wasn't just going to lose her. I lost all the business that came with her. But, it was a really easy decision. She'd been a little bit more of a volatile person. And she went crazy on one of our team members. And our team member is one of the nicest people on the planet. And she was like, I think she was having a bad day. This was out of character. And to be frank, even though she was volatile, she'd never done anything like this. And one thing that we did that I think was very important is we went to her and we said, hey, we're concerned about this that happened. Like we're going to you for the behavior. So we had that conversation was pre-conversation. Like we're concerned about this. This was something that happened in front of other clients. Yes. It happened in front of other team members. This is something that I want you to understand just can't happen again, on one. And sure enough, the next week, boom, happened again. And I remember her being shocked when I called and saying, I can't believe you would do this. Yeah. Like, do you know how much I pay you? And I was like, I do. And I also know it's not worth what you've just, continuing to experience what you've just done.
Yeah. You've done a cost evaluation analysis of this scenario, right? And even though she's paying her membership and the few others, you've looked at it and you've gone, the damage that this could do to
massive.
My business is going to cost a lot more than those handful of memberships.
Well, an easy decision-making thing is, you know that one bad apple like ruins a bunch. Like that phrase, please live and die by it as an owner.
One we'll
that's
get
one we love.
Okay, we'll do that one.
I mean, I'm all about this because like whether it's a bad team member or it's a bad client, that spreads so rapidly. What I also recognize on the other side of this is that that's the type of thing that it's going to spread to team members who look and say, you didn't get behind someone we loved. You didn't get behind someone who you should have taken care of. So important on this. So important. So let me just go on ahead and ask this. How do you have this conversation with a client?
Not with a lot of enjoyment, not without a lot of preparation. That's for sure, right? I think what's really important here is that there shouldn't be surprises in this, right? Like we should have done the legwork prior to lead up to this point, right? So they should kind of know what's coming, right? But for me, it's about being really clear and really transparent on the reasons why, right? So I'm not, again, trying to sugarcoat anything. I'm not trying to, lead on a roundabout goose chase, whatever it is. I'm saying this is what's happened, right? This is the consequence of that, or this is where we've landed as a result of that. As such, I'm left with no choice but to, deliver this outcome.
Yeah. Make sure on this one, I think really critical, just like when you're firing a team member, when you're firing a client, you want to have something that's ready for them to sign, that's ready for them just to acknowledge or things like that. They may not be willing to, but you may want to say, hey, if you do this over Zoom, which is what I highly recommend these days doing it over, save the recording, like be very clear on where this is. Expect that you're going to get a nasty review. Yes. Like just be prepped for that, and be prepped to go on ahead and go into this. So don't be shocked. Be prepared to answer this. Be respectful during this. I think such an important piece is it is easy when somebody has just been horrible to you and they slapped you all around to be like, I want to attack back. This is when I want you to go and do whatever your favorite meditation is, do whatever your favorite breathing exercises are. Because when you go into this, you're going to want to go in and say a real clear thing, like your attitude and actions will not affect or impact me. Correct. I am making a choice to say that you do not bother me and that I'm able to stay in my own peace of mind, in my own, deep sense of respect in spite of how you may act.
Exactly. And do it in a timely manner, but don't rush into it, right? If you're still feeling all the emotions of the situation that happened, that's not the time to have the conversation. It's okay to wait for a minute and to just get your thoughts in line, get all your ducks in a row, right? If they're on a paid in full membership, for example, or there's something like that, are we looking at refunding for the remaining costs? Like have all your legalities ticked off, right? And something that I do too is, to your point about recording a Zoom, I always have someone else there with me for this conversation. So I have my assistant manager, or I have maybe a manager on duty or something like that, someone who can just be a witness to the conversation.
Yep. This is something where it sounds so silly and it probably sounds so ridiculous to most people, but you want to have a data point that this is what happened, this is what was conveyed. If you can have the recording, phenomenal. Yeah. If you can't, the witness is an absolute.
A recap
it's
email.
By the way, recap email is 100% you want to send this, and you should have that written in advance. I oftentimes send that literally. I mean, if I have somebody on the call with me, I will have that send that before the call has even ended, so that it is just done and it's ready to go. Everything is in writing. Everything is absolutely clear. This is something where, again, you want to have every step taken care of, and you want to be able to walk away from this knowing you've done this correctly.
Yep, absolutely. Because if there is a storm that they are going to try to make come your way, at least you know you can weather it with your head held high, and just knowing that you did everything right and you did everything according to your values and from a legal perspective and respectfully.
I love that. I love that. I love that. I think we always hope nobody has to have these conversations. I think the reality is the more successful you are in business, the more likely you're going to have them. It's an interesting conundrum. The greater the success, the more these go up. I would like to think it does like this. It does not. The way you choose to have these conversations and the choice to have the conversations is ultimately the difference between how profitable you are, how good your culture is, both from a team perspective and from a client perspective. Honestly, how strong your studio appears in the community. I think this is something you can't ever walk away from. So uncomfortable, but 100% necessary.
I couldn't agree more. And to that point around your community, the person who you've had to let go of might view that whole situation as a really negative thing, but all the other clients are also going to take lessons from that, right? They're going to understand that you do protect their comfort, their environment, their studio.
It breeds loyalty amongst everybody.
Absolutely, right? They see you standing up and fighting for them, not just your team members, but your clients too. So
I love that. I love that. Well, y'all, this was an amazing series. I mean, who knew on where this was? I never
who knew we could enjoy talking about uncomfortable conversations so
much. Who knew
much?
we could have fun when we were doing this? It turns out uncomfortable conversations, you can actually have a positive side on the other side of them. Now, guys, if you haven't yet, make sure you watch parts 1 and 2. I mean, I think these are like critical must watch for every single studio. Whether you're watching this right now on YouTube or you're listening to this on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, be sure to subscribe, leave us a review, tell us what you're doing in your studios today and what conversations you're willing to have right now that are critical to your future. Thanks, y'all.